Hello friends, I am making this video for the purpose to understand the book Das Capital. However, I am planning to make these videos in future as well as a series of lectures. Uh, Basically, I chose this topic because this work, Capital, is considered to be very complicated and complex piece of work. However, it is an old book and it was written in 1860s, but still it has lot of relevance. So we need to investigate that what is its relevance and what is the reason that why we should read this book. So basically the first reason is that the work Capital explains its age in a very profound manner. So it explains about the industrial revolution and the capitalist mode of production in a well woven manner, while alongside we understand the concepts of capitalism. It is also necessary that we understand that on how Karl Marx wrote this work. What does it mean? It means that what is the methodology that he took, that he used to write this book. So that methodology is popularly known as dialectical materialism. So with this book, with the content of this book, we can understand the concepts of this work as well as the dialectical methodology that is embodied in this book. So and what is the relevance of this dialectical methodology? The relevance of this dialectical methodology is that it is very helpful to understand the changing world. As Karl Marx understood his age by using this dialectical methodology and evolved certain concepts in the form of this work, The Capital. Similarly, the methodology is still relevant. However, the content is also relevant, but the content may not apply as it is after around 170 years of the publication. So, but the methodology is still relevant, and it is very important that we all should learn that what is dialectical materialism and how Karl Marx used this methodology in writing this book. Second, it is not a stable methodology. The dialectical methodology is not something static. It should be used and it should be understood while it should be developed also. So unless we develop the methodology of dialectical materialism, we cannot develop the theory further. There is a problem with most of uh, intellectuals or academicians that they take the work, that is Capital, as it is. If we take a work as it is and do not apply or do not evolve the concepts according to the changing circumstances, changing conditions, then there is every possibility that the concepts become dogma. So that these concepts do not become dogma, it is necessary that to understand the concepts and to develop them further. There is also another tendency, is that to discard the work of Karl Marx, that it is because the it is because his book various revolutions took place, and for example in USSR, and in later stages various despotic rulers came into the world. So this is also a kind of stand that is unscientific stand. So it was only a book, and it was meant to understand the world then. So uh, if Karl Marx should not be held responsible for the later developments, but our responsibility is to understand the work, develop the work, understand the methodology, develop the methodology, and uh, evolve new theory. That what kind of theory is basically applicable in today's world. The same work is being done by great Marxist thinker. His name is Anil Rajimwale, and he is well known to all of us. And this book is his famous work. It was released in 2013. The book's name is The Particle and the Philosophy in Crisis. It is a work of philosophy as well as the various contemporary world. So just like Karl Marx did in his age, he developed the theory of capitalism. This man, Anil Rajimwale, is working on the changing concepts of this word, that how the theory is now evolved into something else. That is, capital may not apply, the concepts of the capital may not apply as it is in the today's world. So new concepts are to be developed. And through this work, that is the particle and the philosophy in crisis. And there is another thing that is written here, towards the mode of information, that how information is completely catapulting the world, and how capital is being uh, how there is a contradiction between the capital and information is ongoing. So these are the further evolved, developed concepts that are being presented by Anil Rajimwale in his various works. But before we understand the works of Anil Rajimwale, it is necessary that we should understand the genesis of his works, that from where they begin. So without understanding Karl Marx, his concepts and his methodology, it is almost near to impossible to understand the changing world. And we know that in today's world, a lot of things has been changed since the time has passed very long. Early, for example, that is around 170 years. So in the meantime, the means of production has been changed drastically. A revolutionary change has been taken place in means of productions, and means of productions are not merely mechanical, and they may not run only on physical forces, but the means of production has been completely changed in the form of uh, electronics, in the form of mobile devices, computer devices, internet technology, satellites. A lot of other kinds of means of production has been evolved, and these means of production have different uh, they have different nature. So their nature is to be understand that what is their nature, and on the basis of these new means, what kind of society is being evolved. So Karl Marx understood his age. Karl Marx understood means of productions of his time, but now by using the methodology of his time, and by understanding the concepts, earlier concepts, it is important that we must understand the changing world of our own, and that how the change in the means of production and means of production has caused a, 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 a vast change in our society. So this is my first exposition. Second, I am planning to present the lectures. It is not basically lecture; it is discussion, because this work, Capital, it is an immense work, and profound as well, and it requires a lot of discussion, and various interpretations can come on the written text, because there is no authority over us that can sanctify that you are right, you are wrong. No, we need to apply the logic, that the most possible, the most rational logic must sustain. So my purpose is to make this video is that the Capital should be read line by line. Obviously it is a long work. More than 3 volumes are there. Every paragraph cannot be read, but I'm planning to make the video of first of all of the first 3 chapters, because the first 3 chapters are very important. Later on we will decide that what is to be done, but at least first 3 chapters should be read line by line, and a lot of things can be discussed here. A lot of interesting things can be discussed here, and my purpose is to find out the dialectical methodology that is hidden between the lines. So without wasting time, we should start with our chapter 1. Okay, so coming to the chapter 1, the chapter 1 is named as Commodities, and section 1, the 2 factors of commodity: use value and value, the substance of value and the magnitude of value. So what do we see from this section 1, from the title of this section 1? The 2 factors of commodity. It means that a commodity has two factors. The first is the use value and the second is the value. And in bracket, he has written the substance of value and the magnitude of value. So what is the substance of value and what is the magnitude of value? And it seems that both of these terms are related with value, and commodity has basically two factors, that is use value and value. So what is a commodity? What is use value? What is value? What is the substance of value? And what is the magnitude of value? These things are to be found in this upcoming paragraphs. So without wasting time, let's study our first paragraph, that is first section. This: the wealth of those societies. Okay. The wealth of those societies in which the capitalist mode of production prevails presents itself as an immense accumulation of commodities. Its unit being a single commodity, our investigation must therefore begin with the analysis of a commodity. So what is he's trying to say? He's beginning his analysis with the analysis of a single commodity, and he is trying to understand the capitalist mode of production. So let's read it again. The wealth of those societies in which capitalist mode of production prevails, that is, the wealth of those societies in which capitalist mode of production prevails presents itself. So who is presenting? The wealth is presenting itself. Of which societies? Of those societies in which capitalist mode of production prevails. So the wealth of those societies in which the capitalist mode of production prevails presents itself as an immense accumulation of commodities. So the wealth in the capitalist mode of production presents itself as an immense accumulation of commodities. Or if we say it in a different manner, that is, the commodities represent the wealth of those societies, of the society of the the commodities present the wealth. They are the representative of the wealth, and their single unit is the the single unit of those societies is a commodity. The single unit of the capitalist mode of production is a commodity. All right. So why he calls it a single unit? Because the commodity contains all the basic contradictions, approximately all the basic contradictions that are prevalent in the capitalist mode of production. And if we understand the commodity properly and its various variables and its constituent parts and the various interconnections between a single commodity and various other commodities, then the capitalist mode of production can be understood. So just like in our body, there is a basic cell, that is an animal cell. Through the study of animal cell, it becomes possible to understand the whole anatomy of a person, whole anatomy of a body. Similarly, Karl Marx has chosen the basic unit, that is a commodity, and by understanding and analyzing the commodity, Karl Marx is trying to enumerate, to expose the uh, various contradictions, various interconnections, and various phenomena of capitalist mode of production. So our investigation must therefore begin with the analysis of a commodity. So with one single commodity, our investigation must begin. So coming to the second paragraph, a commodity is, in the first place, an object outside us, a thing that by its properties satisfies human wants of some sort or another. The nature of such wants, whether, for instance, they spring from the stomach or from fancy, makes no difference. Neither are we here concerned to know how the objects satisfy these wants, whether directly as means of subsistence or indirectly as means of production. So this is my style, that we should read the paragraph in complete first, then we should analyze every single word of the paragraph so that we can extract information out of it. So let's read it again line by line. That is, a commodity is, in the first place, in the first place means prima facie. As soon as we see a commodity, we find a commodity, then how it appears to us, it appears to us as an object outside us. What does it mean, this line, an object outside us? This is quite obvious that a commodity must be an object outside us. Why he is specifically writing this point? A commodity in the first place is an object outside us. So this question must come to your mind, that what does it mean? So according to my opinion, why he is saying so? Because he is analyzing the commodity objectively. He is analyzing the commodity as a subject. He himself is a subject, and the object is outside us. It is a material object, and now it is before us, and now we have to see that what is this commodity, and how do we see it? Obviously through our eyes. And how do we understand it? Obviously through our concepts. So the commodity in reality is an object that is outside us, and as soon as we say that it is a commodity, it means that the object which is placed outside us is understood as commodity in our concept. That's it. So a commodity is in the first place an object outside us, a thing that by its properties satisfies human wants of some sort or another. So it is a thing. First of all, it is a thing, and due to its properties, it satisfies human wants of some sort or another. It's quite simple that because of its properties, a commodity is useful for satisfying human wants of this sort or that sort. The nature of such wants, whether for instance they spring from the stomach or fancy, makes no difference. So it is not necessary, it is not a point of concern that how these wants spring up. These wants, these human wants can spring up from stomach or from fancy. From fancy means from mental, any mental need. So basically he's trying to explain that, explain the human want. He's trying to define human wants. Human wants is the uh, human, according to him, that these human wants are basically to satisfy the needs of stomach and fancy. So it is not of much difference that from where these human wants appear. But the only point that is to be considered here is that a commodity, because of its properties, it satisfies the human wants from wherever they may appear, whether from stomach or from fancy. Neither are we here concerned to know how the object satisfies these wants, whether directly as means of subsistence or indirectly as means of production. So also we are not concerned that the object that we are studying is how it satisfies our human wants. It can be used as a means of subsistence. Subsistence means to a means that is used to for subsisting. For example, a house, a car, some food, etc. Or indirectly as means of production. Means of production means any machine, factory production, etc., etc. So this is how he explains in this paragraph that a commodity in the first place is an object outside us, and it satisfies because of its properties certain human wants. Human wants may emerge from stomach, human wants may emerge from fancy. We are not concerned about it, and we are also not concerned that whether these human wants are uh, these commodities appear before us in the form of means of subsistence or means of production. Okay, So let's come to the next paragraph. That is, every useful thing as iron, paper, etc. may be looked at from the 2 points of views of quality and quantity. It is an assemblage of many properties and may therefore be of use in various ways. To discover the various uses of things is the work of history. So also is the establishment of socially recognized standards of measure for the quantities of these useful objects. The diversity of these measures has its origin partly in the diverse nature of the objects to be measured, partly in convention. So this third paragraph, let's read it again. Every useful thing as iron, paper, etc. may be looked at from the points of view of quality and quantity. So every useful thing has a quantity and a quality. If we say that it is quality, it's quality. Quality means if iron can be heavy, iron can be hard, iron has a kind of color, iron can rust. So iron has certain qualities, physical qualities, chemical qualities. Similarly, it has certain quantity. Quantity means how much iron do we have? 1 kg, 2 kg, 1 ton, 2 ton. In this manner, this quantity and qualities are associated with the every useful thing. So the word thing is important here because it is something that is related with the commodity. So we need to, while studying capital, we need to take care that what words actually Karl Marx is using, because sometimes he uses commodity, sometimes he uses thing. So why there is a difference, and what is the difference between a thing and commodity, this is also to be discussed. So in the upcoming lines we will discuss it. Moving ahead, it is an assemblage of many properties and may therefore be of use in various ways. To discover the various uses of things is the work of history. It is an assemblage of many properties. All right, it is quite correct. May therefore be of use in various ways. To discover the various uses of things is the work of history. So, to discover the various uses of things is the work of history. That is, how many uses can be associated to various infinite number of things is a work of history. Basically he is trying to say that we are not no more concerned, we are not concerned about the utility or the use value of a product, of a thing, and it is a work of history, and let history decide it and let history work over it. So also is the establishment of socially recognized standards of measure for the quantities of these useful objects. Similarly, just like the various use values of things, various properties, physical and quantities of things, its various socially recognized standards of measurement is also a work of history, and uh, they are widely accepted because of their various evolution, their respective evolution. So also is the establishment of socially recognized standards of measure for the quantities of these useful objects. The diversity of these measures has its origin partly in the diverse nature of the object to be measured, partly in convention. What he's saying, the diversity of these socially recognized standards of measure. What is these socially recognized standards of measure? How do we measure these useful objects? We measure these useful objects through various socially recognized standards of measure of quantities. For example, kilo, for example, liter, for example, ounce, pound, etc., etc. So these are various socially recognized standards of measure for the quantities of these useful objects. The diversity of these measures has its origin partly in the diverse nature of the objects to be measured, and partly in convention. So it is because that there is diverse nature of objects that are to be measured. So this diversity of these measures pertains to the diverse nature of the objects themselves that are to be measured, and partly in convention. Partly in convention means there may be two reasons. One is the diversity of these vast objects that are to be measured. Second, because of the convention, various conventions that uh, various forms of conventions, not necessarily voluntary conventions, but he's talking about the customary acceptance of socially recognized standards of measures for the quantities of use values. So this is how he's trying to see a useful thing from its appearance, that how it looks like from it looks like as if that it has a certain quality, certain quantity, certain properties, and various uses. It is measured in through various socially recognized standards, and how those standards came out of the history, and how those standards were basically accepted by all. So here ends this paragraph. Next paragraph. The utility of a thing makes it a use value, but this utility is not a thing of air. Being limited by the physical properties of the commodity, it has no existence apart from that commodity. A commodity such as iron, corn, or a diamond is therefore, so far it is a material thing, a use value, something useful. This property of a commodity is independent of the amount of labor required to appropriate its useful qualities. When treating of use value, we always assume to be dealing with definite quantities such as dozens of watches, yards of linen, or tons of iron. The use values of commodities furnish the material for a study, for a special study, that of the commercial knowledge of commodities. Use values become a reality only by use or consumption. They also constitute the substance of all wealth, whatever may be the social form of that wealth. In the form of society we are about to consider, they are in addition material depositories of exchange value. So this paragraph is quite large, and the paragraph is contains new concepts as well, and it is very profound paragraph. Let's come back to it and let's read it by line. The utility of a thing makes it a use value. So it is quite clear that the utility of a thing makes it a use value. It is because of the utility a thing has a use value. But this utility is not a thing of air. So what does he want to say? It is not a thing of air. Everybody knows that it is not a thing of air. But why he is putting this line here? But this utility is not a thing of air. Being limited by the physical properties of the commodity, it has no existence apart from that commodity. So basically what he is trying to say is that a commodity has physical properties, and the commodity that is placed before us, the commodity that is placed before us has certain physical properties, certain physical limits, and the utility resides in the physical properties of the commodity. But can we see the utility before us? No, we cannot see it. We merely see only the object and its physical properties. We can touch it, we can feel it, and we use it. But we do not see the utility of a thing. But we use the utility of the thing by consumption, by consuming the thing. For example, if I have a water bottle, and the utility of the water bottle is to store water, and if I pour water into it, then I am consuming the utility of the bottle. So it is not a thing of air, it is a thing of reality, that when it has certain physical properties, the commodity has certain physical properties, it is crafted in a certain specific manner, then only it contains the use value, and it must satisfy certain human wants. Those human wants, whether may be arisen from stomach or from fancy. But the point here is that use value, that the utility of a thing makes it a use value, and the physical properties of those commodity represent the utility of that thing. And it is not a mere thing of air, and it is limited by the physical properties of the commodity. It has no existence apart from that commodity. What does this line means? It means that without the real bodily existence of the commodity, there can be no use value. It is clear that we understand the utility of the commodity through the concept of use value, but this concept actually evolves from the physical properties of the commodity, and we as a subject understand it in the form of use value. And through the process of abstraction, through the process of concept formation, we understand that this commodity contains use value, and without this concept use value has no existence beyond this object that is placed before us. So basically what he's trying to enumerate is that we are going to analyze the object, its various aspects, its various physical properties, and these physical properties has us from these physical properties we utilize this product as a certain use value. And uh, obviously, to understand it, that what are we actually doing? We are actually consuming its use value, and this is a concept. We are understanding this phenomena through all these concepts, by the concept of use value, by the concept of utility, by the concept of physical properties, etc., etc. So it is placed before us, and it is we are understanding it in objective reality. A commodity such as iron, corn, or diamond is therefore, so far as it is a material thing, a use value, something useful. So the line is quite complicated, that a commodity such as iron, corn, or diamond, etc., is therefore, so far as it is a material thing. What does this line states? So far as it is a material thing. It means that a question must come into our mind, that a commodity such as iron, corn, or diamond is therefore, so far as it is a material thing. It means that he's stating that so far it is a material thing. It means that something else can also be there. It is a material thing, but something else can also be there. What is he trying to say? That for sometimes it remains a material thing, but at the very same time it may become something else. What kind of complex and absurd talks he is trying to pose here? It is quite unintelligible. Why he is using the word so far? It means that let's investigate it, that why he is using these terms. A commodity such as iron, corn is therefore, so far as it is a material thing, a use value, something useful. It means to say that so far it is a material thing, it is a use value, it is something useful. And we can analyze, we can conclude from the very same line analogically, that so far it is a material thing, it is a use value and something useful, and so far it is not a material thing, it becomes something else. So this is how we need to grasp the methodology, that something is written here, but some logical conclusion must come out of it, that so far as it is a material thing, it is a useful value, it is a use value and something useful. And so far it is not a material thing, and it is a concept, it becomes something else. It has certain other features also that are not visible in the mere appearance of the commodity. So these things are quite complex, because we do not see things philosophically, and if we try to see them philosophically, the concept becomes clearer that what actually Karl Marx is trying to say. He is actually applying the methodology, dialectical methodology, over the commodity. He is witnessing the commodity in its objective reality. And what is the objective reality? The objective reality is that the commodity is in continuous motion, and we are using the commodity, and we are understanding the commodity through the concept formation. So in material, so far as it is material thing, means in its material bodily shape, in its reality, it is a useful thing. But in abstraction, it may be something different. And what is abstraction? Abstraction means how we understand this commodity. This is abstraction. We see it as a material thing, but we understand this commodity through abstraction. And in abstraction, there can be certain other features also that are required to be understood. So this is why this book is quite complicated, because Karl Marx uses the method of abstraction, what we see before us and what we understand out of it. There is a difference between the two, but there should not be difference between the two, because it is the material thing that is predominating the ideal thing. The material thing is the reality, and its motions, its various motions are reflecting within the human brain as concepts. So the material thing has its own motion, it has its own physical and chemical properties, and human being is standing before it and trying to understand it through abstraction, through various concept formation. So we will discuss this kind of philosophies and philosophical discussions in upcoming paragraphs. So let's move further. This property of a commodity is independent of the amount of labor required to appropriate its useful qualities. So which property? The useful property, the use value, the utility of a commodity is independent of the amount of labor required to appropriate its useful qualities. So it is quite clear that how much labor is embodied within a commodity is of not concern when we try to find the use value of a commodity. For example, if I have a bottle and it is used to pour water, I am not concerned about that how much amount of human labor, how much amount of labor has been embodied while forming the bottle. The bottle could have been formed within 1 hour, the bottle could have been formed within 2 hours, 3 hours, or 10 hours. I am not concerned about it. I am merely concerned about that the bottle is a material thing, and it is used for pouring water, storing water in it, and I am consuming it as soon as I store water in the bottle. That's it. This is the use value aspect of the commodity. Moving ahead, when treating of use value, we always assume to be dealing with definite quantities such as dozens of watches, yards of linen, or tons of iron. So when we treat use value, we always assume to be dealing with definite quantities such as dozens of watches, yards of linen, and tons of iron. So he's exemplifying the various quantifying measures that are dozens of watches, yards of linen, tons of iron, and we see the use values of various commodities in the shape of various quantities. Basically, he is stressing over the material aspect of the commodity, which appears before us in the form of watches, that is dozens of watches, yards of linen, tons of iron, etc., etc. The use value of commodities furnish the material for special study, that of commercial knowledge of commodities. So again, he is talking about the same line, that is the work of history, that the use value of commodities furnish the material for special study, that of commercial knowledge of commodities. So this is a separate field of study to understand about the use value of the commodities, and it requires some Karl Marx is not concerned about the use value aspect. The use value of commodities furnish the material for special study, that of commercial knowledge of commodities. So basically he is saying that we are concerned with something else. Use values become a reality only by use or consumption. They also constitute substance of all wealth. This line is very important. Okay, let's read these lines again. Use values become a reality only by use or consumption. They also constitute the substance of all wealth. Let's understand this line. Use value become a reality only by use or consumption. What does it mean? That if we do not use a commodity, they do not become a reality. What does it mean? The use value become reality only by use or consumption. They also constitute the substance of all wealth. So now he is talking about the concept use value. Look, the concept use value becomes reality only by use or consumption. Why he is talking about the concept use value? Because we understand the utility of a thing as use value. It becomes reality when we consume it, when we consume the real object. All right. So this is how, this is a concept, and as soon as we consume it, it becomes a reality. So he is basically highlighting that how a concept is inseparably connected with the reality, and the reality can only be understood by the concept, and the concept is on the veracity of the concept can be only known through the reality. This is how concept and reality are interrelated. So use values become a reality only by use or consumption. They means use values also constitute substance of all wealth. Use values also constitute the substance of all wealth. So the substance of all wealth, what does it mean? What do we call wealth? What is wealth? We say that wealth is commodities. So inside the commodities, where do the wealth stay? The wealth resides in the concept of use value. In the concept of use value, the concept of wealth also stays. It is also there. Use value, let's read it again. Use value become a reality only by use or consumption. Use values also constitute the substance of all wealth. They also constitute substance of all wealth, comma, whatever may be the social form of that wealth. What does it mean? What is social form? Social form means that it is not necessary, it is not it is not a matter of concern that in which historical epoch the use values came into being. The social form of that wealth can be uh, can be emerged out of slavery, could be emerged out of uh, feudal system, could be emerged out of capitalist system, or from tribal system, etc., etc. So use values are being constituted, they are being formed through various under various social organizations, and under various epochs of histories, they constitute the substance of all wealth in all the societies till now, whatever may be the social form of that wealth. So I'm stating it simply that the wealth, the substance of all wealth is within the use values of the commodities. So basically he is analyzing a concept. This is a concept of use value, and the concept of use value contains all the substance of the wealth, and this use value concept do not merely belong to any particular epoch of a history, and the social form of that wealth can be any it can emerge from the any historical uh, era, any historical era. So this is how he is trying to explain the concept of use value. Now coming further, in the form of society we are about to consider, they are who are use values. In addition, the material depositories of exchange value. This line is quite important, that in the form of society we are about to consider, a special society that we are about to consider. We will consider it in the upcoming paragraphs. A special society, a form of society we are about to consider, they are means use values. Use values are, in addition, the material depositories of exchange value. What does this line suggest? This line suggests that in a certain stage of history, use values their use values also started carrying exchange value in themselves. Before that epoch of history, use values were merely the substance of all wealth, and they become the reality only when consumption. But after a certain stage in history, there is a qualitative change in the history when the use value, the concept use value, alongside all the previous concepts, contain something else as well. And what is that something else? That is they become the material depositories of exchange values too. They also, so he's saying that this, therefore the word in addition is used. In addition, the material depositories of exchange value. So from these lines, we can understand that exchange value comes within the use value, within the concept of use value after a later stage of history. And after coming of the concept of exchange value within the use value, the concept turns into something else. This is how Karl Marx uh, trying to utilize the dialectical philosophy over the object, that how the object, the simple looking object that was used for merely consumption and was carrying all the substance of wealth of the society in earlier all the previous societies, in a certain society at after a certain stage also becomes a material depository of exchange value. What is this exchange value? Not clear here. It is not properly explained that what is exchange value. This exchange value is to be explained in the next paragraph. Okay, so coming to the next paragraph, exchange value at first sight presents itself as a quantitative relation, as the proportion in which values in use of one sort are exchanged for those of another sort, a relation constantly changing with time and place. Hence, exchange value appears to be something accidental, purely relative, and consequently an intrinsic value, that is, an exchange value that is inseparably connected with, inherent in commodities, seems a contradiction in terms. Let us consider the matter a little more closely. The paragraph is very complicated and it is very profound. The paragraph encompasses further so many concepts that are about to be the upcoming concepts. But let's try to read it again properly one by one. exchange value. In the last paragraph, he talked about the exchange value, that the commodities, that is the use values, now become material depositories of exchange value in a certain stage of history. Now, exchange value at first sight. What does it mean at first sight? Just like the concept use value that appeared before Karl Marx, similarly, now he has picked the concept of exchange value as if like a chemical in a laboratory. He is trying to understand the concept as if that he is sitting in a laboratory, and he is trying to understand the relationships between the various chemicals and how they react with each other, what form of compounds they form, what form of mixtures they form, and how, what is the logical relationships between them, how they smell. So this is how, this is quite interesting, that he takes the exchange value in from its very appearance. But the question is that exchange value do not appear. Yes, it appear. How it appear? In a quantitative relation. What is this quantitative relation? Let's go deep into it. Exchange value at first sight presents itself as a quantitative relation, as the proportion in which values in use of one sort are exchanged for those of another sort. So, how an exchange value appears before us? They appear in the form of quantitative relation. Quantitative relation means how quantitative relation? That, for example, one bottle can be exchanged with 2 mangoes. So what is the exchange value of the bottle? The exchange value of the bottle is 2 mangoes. So it is a quantitative relation. It appears on the very first sight that exchange value is a quantitative relation, and the exchange, in our example of bottle and mango, the bottle has an exchange value of 2 mangoes, and this is a quantitative relation, that 1 mango, 2 mango, 3 mango. This is how it appears, as if that it is a quantitative relation. It, in the very first sight, it looks like that it is only a quantitative relation. However, it is a qualitative relation also, that is to be discussed into the upcoming paragraph. But up to this line, we need to understand that at the very first sight, it is merely a quantitative relation between two what use values or something else. Let's see. In the next line, comma, as the proportion in which the values in use of one sort are exchanged for those of another sort. Now, one thing is very important, that we need to pay very acute attention on the words that Karl Marx is using. He is using this word values in use, not use values. Why? The question must come to the mind that he is using the word values in use, but not use value. It means to him that my interpretation, our interpretation to this use of this phrase, these words, is that now Karl Marx uh, is approaching the same concept through a different angle. Which concept? The same concept, the use value, which was carrying substance of all wealth, whatever may be the social form of wealth, and also the material depository of exchange value. But now, as now we are concerned with the exchange value, so now he is looking the use value through the point of view of exchange value. The same concept is being witnessed, is being looked through a different angle. And now the use values do not appear to Karl Marx as use values, they appears to him as if they are values in use. That is, the primary constituent of those use values are actually now become the values in use. So they are basically values now, but they are also useful. So this is a method in which he is looking towards the same concept through a different angle. So now, because he's talking about the exchange value point of view of the use value, so he is calling the use value as if values in use, because he has picked the this point, that is values in. Okay, let's read it again and reconstitute the line. Exchange value at first sight presents itself as a quantitative relation between one bottle, two mangoes. Two mangoes has a two mangoes have a exchange value of one bottle, and one bottle has a exchange value of two mangoes, as the proportion in which values in use of one sort are exchanged for those of another sort. So it presents itself that as if that in quantitatively in this quantitative relationship, and these values are of values in use of one sort are exchanged for those of another sort. So these values in use are actually getting exchanged with each other in a certain quantitative relationship. So this is the prima facie, this is how the exchange value appears to him, a relation constantly changing with time and place. What does it mean? So this is a quantitative relation. It may change with changing time and changing place. For example, in morning, mangoes may be in morning the mangoes may be costly. In evening, mangoes may become cheaper. So in morning, the mangoes can be the one bottle can fetch me two mangoes, while in evening it can fetch me three mangoes. So with time, the quantitative relationship between the bottle and the mango, and in the proportion in which the bottle and the mango gets exchanged, changes. Similarly, through with place, this relationship can also change. In India, I can fetch two mangoes with a bottle, but in America, mangoes can be costly, and one bottle can only fetch only single mango. So this is how this quantitative relationship that appears before in the first sight uh, is basically the proportional exchange of the quantity of various sorts of values in use, a relation constantly changing with time and place. Hence, exchange value appears to be something accidental and purely relative, and consequently an intrinsic value, that is an exchange value that is inseparably connected with inherent in commodities, seems a contradiction in terms. So these last lines from this hence exchange value to this contradiction in terms, these lines are also very complicated and are to be understood in very keen care. Okay, hence exchange value appears to be something accidental and purely relative. Why an exchange value appears to be something accidental and purely relative? Because in the very first appearance, it looks like as if that it is a quantitative relation between two values in use of one and another sort. So with every changing commodity, for example, in our earlier example, the bottle and the two mangoes. Suppose if instead of mangoes, apples appear before the commodity bottle, then the exchange value of the bottle turns into apple. Apple can be, it is not necessary that only two apples, just like the two uh, mangoes, are to be exchanged with the bottle. Apple can be exchanged in a different proportion, one apple or two apples or three apples or five apples with a single bottle. It depends upon the price of the apple and the mango. But yet we are not concerned about the concept price. We need to understand this language as it is. So it appears that it is something accidental and purely relative. And it is relative means it is in relation to something else. The exchange value is in relation to something else. The exchange value of the bottle is in relation to apple is two apples. Sorry, in relation to the mangoes is it is two mangoes, and in relation to apple it can become three apples. So similarly, it means that it is accidental and it is purely relative, but it appears to be so. This appears should not be missed here. Hence, exchange value appears to be something accidental and purely relative, comma, and consequently an intrinsic value, comma. This comma is very important. So what he is trying to say, that at the one that at the one instance it appears that it is something accidental and relative, while at the same while at the same instance it is an intrinsic value. So if it is an intrinsic value of the commodity, intrinsic means uske andar hi hai, it is there inside the commodity. It is, if it is inside the commodity, as we discussed earlier, that use values are the material depositories of exchange value. So if the use values, when they become values in use during the exchange and they appear as if that some quantitative relation is being formed between the two values in use in different proportions, and they are exchanged in different proportions, and it looks like that as if that it is a accidental and purely relative relationship. That exchange value is something accidental and purely relative, but at the very same time he is also suggesting that it is an intrinsic value. So how this contradiction, how do we see this contradiction? Here it is a contradiction, that the exchange value is at the very same time it is an intrinsic value, and at the very same time it changes with every commodity that comes before our commodity. Our commodity is bottle. Every commodity that comes before this commodity, and the exchange value changes. With apples it changes, with mangoes it changes. So at the very same time he is also suggesting that it is an intrinsic value. So if it is an intrinsic value, then it must be stable, it must not change, but at the very same time it is changing, it is accidental. So there is a contradiction. This contradiction is to be resolved. So moving ahead, that is, an exchange value that is inseparably connected with inherent in commodities seems a contradiction. So he is stating that an exchange value which is inseparably connected with the commodity, which is inherent in the commodities, is appearing before us in various forms and in accidental and purely relative forms. This is a contradiction, and this contradiction is to be resolved, that where do the exchange value actually stay, whether it stays in the accidental or relative commodities that are appearing all the time before our bottle, or it is resides in the bottle itself. Not the bottle, we are talking about the concept. Bottle means bottle concept. So don't forget that we are all dealing with the concepts. So I think that it is quite intelligible, it is quite clear that here we struck at a contradiction, that where do the exchange value remains, where do it stay, where do it dwells, whether in the every commodity that appears before it in the form of exchange value, or whether within the same commodity of whose exchange value we are about to inquire, that is bottle. So coming to the next paragraph, let us consider the matter a little more closely. Which matter? That we discussed just now. A given commodity, for example, a quarter of wheat is exchanged for X blacking, Y silk. This X and Y are the magnitudes of blacking, silk, or gold. So a given quantity, a given commodity, for example, a quarter of wheat is exchanged for X blacking, Y silk, or Z gold, etc. In short, for other commodities in the most different proportions. Instead of one exchange value, the wheat has therefore many, but since X blacking, Y silk, or Z gold, etc., each represent the exchange value of one quarter of wheat, X blacking, Y silk, Z gold, etc., must as exchange values be replaceable by each other or equal to each other. Therefore, first, the valid exchange values of a given commodity express something equal. Secondly, exchange value generally is only the mode of expression, the phenomenal form of something contained in it, yet distinguishable from it. So the paragraph is quite relatable with the discussion that we did in this paragraph, that suppose we have a given commodity, that is a quarter of wheat, and now it is exchangeable with certain other commodities of various quantitative magnitudes, X blacking, Y silk, Z gold, etc. They are exchanged with the quarter of wheat in their various respective quantitative proportions. Second, instead of one exchange value, the wheat has therefore a great many. So wheat has number of exchange values. But since X blacking, Y silk, or Z gold, etc., each represents the exchange value of one quarter of wheat, X blacking, Y silk, Z gold must as exchange values be replaceable by each other. It means that since they are exchange values of a common commodity, that is one quarter of wheat, so all these exchangeable analogically must also be replaceable with each other or equal to each other. All of them must be equal to each other. So basically what he is suggesting is that various quantities of various chemical and physical properties, of various use values, of various quantities X, Y, Z, since they are exchangeable with a common commodity, that is a quarter of wheat, they becomes equal to each other and they are replaceable by each other. So all of them, despite of their different appearances and different chemical physical properties, different use values and different magnitudes, they are still equal. And he has proved mathematically that those, because they are equal to a single commodity in a particular quantitative magnitude, that is a quarter of wheat, and they are exchangeable with it commonly, so they are replaceable by each other and therefore equal to each other. Therefore, first, what is the conclusion that he is drawing after this analysis is that, therefore, first, the valid exchange values of a given commodity expresses something equal. So the valid exchange values of a quarter of wheat, we can put quarter of wheat here, the valid exchange values of the quarter of wheat express something equal. So they all are expressing something equal in them. Basically, they are all different. They look different. They appear different. They are different use values. They are of different magnitudes, but still they are exchangeable with each other because they are exchangeable, because they were exchangeable with a common commodity. And since out of this we can conclude that the valid exchange value of a given commodity, the valid exchange values, number of values, because they are infinite, because commodities are infinite. So the exchange values of the quarter of wheat are also infinite. So the valid exchange values of a given commodity expresses something equal. They all are jointly expressing that they have something in common in themselves, which is not visible, which do not appear. It is there in themselves, but it do not appear. They appear in various shapes. They appear in the form of blacking, they appear in the form of silk, they appear in the form of gold, etc., etc. But still they share something equal. All right. Secondly, the second aspect, the second conclusion that he's drawing out of it. Secondly, exchange value generally is only the mode of expression. So he is giving a general statement that he is trying to define exchange value, that exchange value generally is only the mode of expression, comma, the phenomenal form, comma, of something contained in it, yet distinguishable from it. So again, contained in it and distinguishable from it. Contradiction, the same contradiction that we read in this paragraph, the intrinsic value and the relative value. That is, it is inside the commodity, the use value, as well as it appears relatively or accidentally in various forms. So the same he is talking about the same contradiction, but he has resolved the contradiction up to a certain level, that there is something common between the commodities, all of them. So therefore they are getting exchanged with each other, and they are replaceable with each other, and they are replaceable with a common commodity, and they are representing exchange value of a common commodity, and that commodity is the quarter of wheat. Here we can place our own example, that is a bottle, water bottle. So coming back to the last line, this line is very important. Secondly, exchange value generally is only the mode of expression. It is only the mode of expression. It is expressing something which is hidden in it. So exchange value is the mode of expression, the phenomenal form. What is the phenomenal form? Phenomenal form means it is the form. It is the form of the phenomena. Something very basic is hidden within this concept, and the concept appears in the form of exchange value. It appears in the form of exchange value. It is a mode of expression. It is a phenomenal form. It means that there is something, an essence that is underlying and that is covered under the phenomenal form, and that essence is to be uncovered. So this is basically he's talking philosophically, that in appearance is the form, and as soon as we try to go deeper into the form, we approach towards the essence. So this is a philosophical discussion that he's trying to raise here, that everything that we see is basically the appearance and basically the form, and beyond that form we need to find the essence. But in philosophy, neither the form and the essence are stable. They keep on changing, and as soon as we approach toward the essence becomes the form, and The essence is basically some kind of abstract entity, and we keep on finding the essence, and we keep on going deeper and deeper into the concepts. The deeper and deeper into the concepts, we try to find multiple interconnections, multiple reasons, and ultimately we achieve certain conclusions. And as soon as we find the essence, they become form, because they start appearing. So this is a continuous, this is a continuous this is a continuous activity that we have to do while understanding a concept, that we need to follow, we need to go deeper and deeper into the concept and find the essence, and every time we find the essence, it becomes the form. So this is quite simple. Second, it is not necessary, it is not always necessary that the connotation is that essence is always hidden. No, it is not, it is not like that. Essence can be form and form can be essence. This is dialectics. This is dialectical unity of the form and the essence, and it is not necessary that essence must always be hidden. A very simple example that can be given here is that when we see a person walking on a road, what do we see? What do we actually see? In the form, we see a person. This is form. And what is the essence? Multiple essence. It can have multiple essence, infinite essences. But in one sense, we can say that he is a person, and life is the essence of this person. But can't we say that life is also the appearance of this person? It is also the form of this person, and the person is the essence. So this is how the essence and the form are interconnected with each other, and they can become the essence can become appearance, and the appearance can become essence. This is the dialectical unity and struggle between the form and the essence. So this is a kind of philosophical jugglery that is to be discussed here. And let's coming back to the paragraph, that the exchange value generally is only the mode of expression, the phenomenal form of something contained in it, yet distinguishable from it. So the exchange value is the mode of expression which is contained, the exchange value generally is only the mode of expression, the phenomenal form, something contained in it, yet it is distinguishable from it. So that's something to which the exchange value is representing is not mentioned here. That what is that something of which the exchange value is merely a mode of expression, is merely a phenomenal form, and that something is contained within the commodity, and yet it is contained in the commodity, but at the very same time it is distinguishable from the commodity. It is there, but it is there at the very same time it is somewhere else also. So this is quite philosophical and dialectical, that something is at one stage, but something is at one point, but at the very same time it is at another point also. It can be at another point also. How? For example, there can be multiple examples of it. For example, we are sitting on earth. So at the very same time we are on the earth, but at the very same time we are in the universe also. We are sitting stable on a table chair, but at the very same time we are moving at the speed of earth around the sun. So this is how he is trying to explain that something there, from one angle if we see it is contained in it, from another angle if we see it is distinguishable from it. However, both are reality. The appearance is also reality, the essence is also reality. What we see is also true, but that is not the only truth. There are multiple truths, there are multiple realities that are to be found beyond the appearance. We should not satisfy ourselves with the appearance. We should go deep, we should investigate, find various other variables of the object, of the concept, how variables are interrelated, what is the scientific relation between them, and the how infinite variables keeps on changing, how the object itself is changing. So this is how he is trying to explain philosophically the concept of exchange value, use value, and the exchange value is the appearance of something hidden in it, that something is yet not revealed. Okay, so coming to the next paragraph, let us take two commodities, for example, corn and iron. The properties in which they are exchangeable, the proportions in which they are exchangeable, whatever those proportions may be, can always be represented by an equation in which a given quantity of corn is equated to some quantity of iron. For example, 1/4 of corn is equal to x quarter of iron. So x quantity of iron. What he is saying, what does this equation tell us? It tells us that in two different things, in 1/4 of corn and x quarter of iron, there exists in equal quantities something common to both. The two things must therefore be equal to a third, which in itself is neither the one nor the other. Each of them, so far as it is exchange value, must therefore be reducible to this third. So this paragraph is further explanation of what we have studied in the last two paragraphs. So he is taking an example of two commodities. One is the corn, another is the iron. The proportions in which they are exchangeable, whatever those proportions may be, can always be represented by an equation. What equation? An equation in which those quantities can be exchanged in certain quantitative proportion. 1/4 and x quarter of iron. This is how he is again explaining the quantitative relationship between the quantities, that how they are, between the use values, that how they are getting exchanged with each other. In the last paragraph, we saw that how x blackings are equal to y silk. So this is another example. So what does this equation tell us? It tells us that in two different things, in 1/4 of corn and x quarter of iron, there exists in equal quantities something common to both. However, they are of different appearance, however, they are of different chemical and physical properties, however, they have different magnitude, but still something exists in them which is of equal quantities and which is common to both. And this is the reason that they are getting exchanged with each other. The two things must therefore be equal to a third, which in itself is neither the one nor the other. So what he is trying to deduce, that two must be reducible into another third, and that third is neither the quarter of corn nor the iron. It means that it is common to the both, but we cannot say that it is corn, we cannot say that it is iron, but it is something else, and the both can be reducible into it, but we cannot specifically say that this is this and this is that. So coming back, the two things must therefore be equal to a third, which in itself is neither the one nor the other. The third is neither the corn nor the iron. The third has an independent existence but has no form. It has no form, neither of corn nor of iron, but it has an independent existence. So each of them, that is corn and iron, so far as it is exchange value, must therefore be reducible to this third. The last line suggests that each of them, so far as it is exchange value, each of them, so far as it is exchange value. What does it mean? That so far they are in a relationship of exchange. If they are not in the relationship of exchange, they are individual commodities. For example, 1/4 corn alone, or x quarter iron alone. there is no such relationship of exchange value between the two. When they come into the relationship with each other, each of them, so far as it is exchange value, must therefore be reducible to the third. So far, both of them acts as exchange value in that capacity, or in that particular moment, moment, they can be reducible into the third, otherwise not. Only under such circumstances, so far as each of them is a exchange value, they must be, each of them must be, therefore be reducible to this third. I hope it is quite intelligible that there is something common between them and distinguishable from them, and it is in both of them, yet we cannot say that it is it. It is there, but it is not there at the same time. It is there in the corn and it is there in the iron as well, but it is neither in the corn nor in the iron. It is in both. So we cannot pinpoint it that where does the third actually stay. This is a dialectical relationship between the corn and iron and the third, that how all of them are connected with each other, and where actually this third exists is not specified, but yet it is there in both of them, and yet it is completely distinguishable from them. It is completely distinguishable from them. It has a complete separate identity, yet at the very same time distinguishable from them, but at the very same time it resides in them. So this is how we can find that various dialectical laws are being applicable here, that the third, this third is completely associated with them. This is a unity, we can call it unity, but at the very same time it is completely distinguishable. This is struggle. So this is how we can enumerate certain other laws out of it. For example, when it becomes an exchange value, it completely abstracts from the corn and iron. So all right, these things are quite confusing, but we should not go into all this. We will go slowly and steadily into the philosophical and dialectical aspect of these relationships. The only point that is considered to be necessary is that this third has an independent identity, but also an identity that is always associated with this corn and iron. So coming to the next paragraph, a simple geometrical illustration will make this clear. In order to calculate and compare the areas of rectilinear figure, we decompose them into triangles, but the area of triangles itself is expressed by something totally different from its visible figure, namely by half the product of the base multiplied by the altitude. In the same way, the exchange values of commodities must be capable of being expressed in terms of something common to them all, of which thing they represent a greater or less quantity. So coming back to the paragraph line to line, the gist of the paragraph is that Karl Marx is trying to explain the same concept that we understood in the previous paragraph, that despite that the two different things had different appearance, they have different rules, they have different different chemical physical properties. Similarly, but still they share something common. Similarly, he is trying to explain this phenomena through a mathematical example, that through a geometrical illustration. In this, he says that in order to calculate and compare the area of rectilinear figure, What is this rectilinear figure? The rectilinear figure, just 1 minute. Okay. The rectilinear figure means a figure that is made up of lines. For example, triangles, for example, straight lines, not lines, straight lines. For example, squares, hexagon, this rectangle, etc. So in order to calculate and compare the areas of rectilinear figures, we decompose them into triangles. So mathematically, when we try to find the areas of various rectilinear figures, we decompose them into triangles. By decomposing them into triangles, by dissecting them into various triangles, number of triangles, we try to find the areas of those rectilinear figures. But the area of the triangle itself is expressed by something totally different from its visible figure. So when it comes to finding the area of the triangle, when it comes to the finding the area of the triangle itself, then it is expressed by something totally different from its visible figure, namely by half the product of the base multiplied by the altitude. So basically what he's suggesting is that it is, despite that every rectilinear figure, the area of every rectilinear figure is calculated through the use of triangles, and as soon as we decompose them into triangles, then we find the area of the triangles through a completely different manner from their visible appearance. And what is the completely different manner? That is half by the product of base multiplied by the altitude. So basically, what he is trying to say is that both rectilinear figures and the triangle composed of something very common. And what is that very something common? That very something common is the lines, the straight lines. Straight lines are there in the rectilinear figures, and it is also straight lines that are there in the triangles. And the lines are common to the rectilinear figures. The lines are common to the triangles. Triangles are related with the rectilinear figures, and rectilinear figures areas are calculated through triangles, but triangles area is calculated by the lines. Which line? Baseline and the altitude line. So this is how he is trying to find the common out of the rectilinear figures and the triangles, despite the rectilinear figure is dependent upon the triangle in finding its area, but still the triangle is dependent upon the common something, and that common something is the lines that is shared by both the rectilinear figure and the triangle. So this is how it is relatable with the upper paragraph, that how the rectilinear figure and the triangles both can be reduced into the common third, that is lines, and yet the lines are completely distinguishable from rectilinear figure and triangle, yet the lines are both carried by rectilinear figures and triangles. So this is how he is comparing through mathematical example. Now in the next line, in the same way, the exchange values of commodities must be capable of being expressed in terms of something common to them all, of which thing they represent a greater or less quantity. So similarly, just like the rectilinear figure and the triangles, in the same way, the exchange values of commodities must be capable of being expressed in terms of something common to them all. So you can relate exchange value with the area of those figures. So the exchange value of commodities must be capable of being expressed in terms of something common to them all. So here something common is the not mentioned, that is something common, and in case of mathematics, that something common is the lines, the common lines. So the exchange value of the commodities must be capable of being expressed in terms of something common to them all, of which thing they represent a greater or less quantity, of that common thing, they means those commodities represent a greater or less quantity. It means that that common thing can be of greater magnitude within a certain commodity, and that common thing can be of lesser magnitude, lesser quantity in another commodity, but yet it is common to all the commodities, but in different quantitative proportions. Just like in mathematics, the rectilinear figure, for example, square contains 4 lines, so, and triangle contains 3 lines. So the lines are common to both the figures, but they are common to them, and but they are in different quantitative proportions. Rectilinear figure, for example, square contains 4 lines, triangle contains 3 lines. Similarly, exchange value contains that various exchange values of various commodities contains that something common in greater or lesser quantity, but still that greater or lesser quantity is common to all of them. Okay, so coming to the next paragraph, this common something cannot be either a geometrical, a chemical, or any other natural property of commodities. Such properties claim our attention only insofar as they affect the utility of those commodities, make them use values. But the exchange of commodities is evidently an act characterized by a total abstraction from use value. The one use value is just as good as another, provided only it be present in sufficient quantity. So we should understand up to this point first. So moving back to the first line, this common something cannot be either a geometrical, a chemical, or any other natural property of commodities. So it cannot be a geometrical or a chemical or any natural property of commodity, because it is common to all. It is something that is common to all of the commodities. So it must not relate to the physical or chemical or natural properties of those commodities. It is something very different from all of them. Such properties claim our attention only insofar as they affect the utility of those commodities, make them use values. So such properties, that is geometrical, chemical, and other natural properties, claim our attention only insofar in which we are concerned about the utility of those commodities, and that utility makes them use values. So we are not concerned here with that aspect. We are leaving that aspect aside, and we are in investigation of this common something which is not related with the geometrical, chemical, or any other natural properties of the commodities. And with these geometrical, chemical, and natural properties of the commodities, utility of those commodities, which is making them use value, is concerned, is associated. But the exchange of commodities is evidently an act characterized by a total abstraction from use value. So, as we are concerned about the exchange value, so while during the act of exchange, the act of exchange of commodities, the act of exchange gives us what? Gives us exchange value. The exchange of commodities is evidently an act characterized by a total abstraction from use value. So what Karl Marx is making a statement here is that exchange of commodities is evidently an act characterized by a total abstraction from use value. So what he is doing, that to understand the exchange of commodities, to understand this act, it is evident that the when the commodities exchange with each other, they completely abstract from use values. Not even an iota of use values enter into the process of exchange of the commodities, and it is a total abstraction from the chemical, geometrical, or any other natural properties of the commodities, because the exchange between the commodities takes place because of the common something in all of them, and that common something has nothing to do with the use value or the utility, or from where the utility emerges, that is the physical or natural or chemical properties of the commodities. So coming back, so the exchange of commodity is evidently an act characterized by a total abstraction from use value, and then one use value is just as good as another. So when we see these use values, these commodities, from the point of view of the common something, from the spectacle of that common something, and we abstract every iota of the use value, every uh, every quality of being different physical or chemical form, we abstract all of them. What we see, what we found, what we find that then one use value is just as good as another, because now all of the use values has been converted into that common something, and that common something is common to all of them and has no such appearance. It has no such appearance as like of various different sorts of commodities. It is completely an essence. That common something is completely an essence common to both of them, and it appears in the form of various use values. But then but actually it is the essence. So then one use value is just as good as another, provided only it be present in sufficient quantity. So in these terms, in the terms of these common something, these use values become just alike. One use value is completely similar to the other use value. There is no difference between the two, because they have been now converted into that common third. They have been now reduced into that common third, which has no shape, no appearance, and but the only requirement is that they should be exchanged with each other, they should be equated with each other in proper sufficient quantity. Because we have already answered this question in the above paragraph, that lines are common to both rectilinear figure and triangles, but they have to be presented in but lines are of different quantity. In this it is 4, in this it is 3, but yet they are common to each other. Similarly, in this paragraph, similarly in this paragraph, when they are converted into the common something, it is only the quantity that is to be equated in a right proportion. So it doesn't it looks like contradictory that if quantities are different, then how if that common somethings quantities are different, then how the two can be exchanged? This is a contradiction, that this is an apparent contradiction. So it is quite obvious that when we compare the two commodities in sufficient quantity, basically he is stating that we need to compare them in exchange values, in the form of exchange values, that is the apparent form. For example, in our earlier example, that is one bottle is equal to two apples or two mangoes. In this, one bottle and the two apples or two mangoes are equated with each other in sufficient quantity, because two apples sufficiates equal quantity of the common something that is being carried by the one bottle. So, however, both have qualitatively same qualitative similarity of that common something, but still, because of their different appearance, they need to be equated in different quantities. So this line is very profound and it requires deeper analysis. However, it is also very simple if we just say that in one sense they are qualitatively same, but because in appearance they are qualitatively different. So when we exchange the two commodities, we actually the exchange actually takes place between the qualitative similarity of the two commodities, and because the exchange is taking place in reality, and in reality that common something, that qualitatively same something do not appear, and it appears in the form of exchange value, and exchange value is nothing but the quantitative proportion, the apparent quantitative proportion in which the commodities are exchanged. For example, one bottle, two mangoes. So this is how he is trying to say, coming back to the same line, the one use value is just as good as another, provided only it be present in sufficient quantity. So this line is quite complicated, but it is explained in the upcoming lines. Let's see it. Or as old Bourbon says, one sort of wares are as good as another if the values be equal. There is the term value has been used for the very first time. He is suggesting this old Bourbon. One sort of wares are as good as another if the values be equal. There is no difference or distinction in things of equal value. 100 pounds worth of lead or iron is as great value as 100 pounds worth of silver or gold. So basically, here gold or silver are equal to iron. The only thing that is required that they must contain the same value. But the quantitatively, when we equate them with each other, different quantities appear, just like our earlier example, the bottle and the apples. Because iron contains less value or that common something, so we need vast amount of iron. For example, 1 ton of iron, 1 quintal of iron is equal to 10 grams of gold. So both iron and gold carry that common something in the form of value, but still when we equate that common something, that common something is equated in the form of the real or material thing, that is iron and gold, because that common something, the value has no shape, it has no appearance, it is the essence. It appears in the form of iron or it appears in the form of gold, but yet it is carried in both of them, and it is distinguishable from both of them, and it is reducible into that common third. But when we have to equate them, because of their different appearances, because of their different chemical and physical properties, they carry a different quantity of that common something into themselves. Therefore, when we equate them with each other, iron and gold with each other, their quantitative proportion changes, and only then the exchange takes place. Exchange becomes scientific, exchange becomes objective when the proper proportion of the quantity when the proper proportion of the quantity of the two items is ensured. So the gold, 10-gram gold is equal to 1 quintal of iron, or making it more simple, 10-gram gold is equal to 1 kg of silver. So that common something is carried by both, but represented by different quantities of gold and silver. However, that common something is equal in quantitative aspects within the form as as values they are now equal. They are both of 100 pounds. 1 kg silver and 10 grams gold, they are worth of 100 pounds. But if we see them in their appearance, it is of 1 kg and it is of 10 grams. In the next line, this concept is explained in a more uh, intelligible manner. As use values, commodities are above all of different qualities. So as use values, they are of they are as use values, commodities are above all of different qualities, but as exchange values, they are merely different quantities and consequently do not contain an atom of use value. So we should not confuse between these terms quantity and quality. Make it very simple. Quantity and quality, use value can have both quantity and quality. For example, if we say, we start from where we started, that if we say that a bottle has a use value, must have a certain, from appearance, must have a certain quality and quantity. How much quantity? Quantity means one, it is one bottle. How, what quality? The bottle is of green color, the bottle is made up of plastic. This is the quantitative and qualitative aspect of the bottle from use value point of view. Now coming to the another point of view, that is from the value point of view. From value point of view, the quantity and quality changes. This concept of quantity and quality changes. Now when coming back to this, but as exchange values, they are merely different quantities. Why he is saying so? But as exchange values, they are merely different quantities, because qualitatively they are that common something which is qualitatively same. So in as exchange values, they are merely different quantities, as if one is the 1 kg silver and the another is the 10-gram gold. So they are different quantities. If we see the same thing, forget use value, quality and quantity, don't confuse it with this. Take it from the aspect of exchange value. Silver and gold are different as exchange values, are different quantities. One is 1 kg silver, another is 10-gram gold, but they are qualitatively same. They are qualitatively same. And what is this qualitatively same thing? That common something. And what is this common something? It is value. And we may, this old Bourbon has also said that an 100 pounds, for example, 100 pounds. So they are qualitatively same in terms of 100 pounds. They are qualitatively same in terms of uh, that common something. They are qualitatively same in terms of money. They are qualitatively same in terms of value. However, we should not confuse the concept of money at this earlier stage, but to understand the concept, we can borrow this future concept to make it understandable. Let's read it again. As use values, commodities are above all of different qualities, but as exchange values, they are merely different quantities, because they are of same quality. When we see the same when the two commodities from the exchange value point of view, they are of same quality and consequently do not contain an atom of use value. So as exchange value, use values do not matter, and as and exchange value, they are qualitatively same in the form of value, and they are merely different quantities. So up to this point, I have tried to enumerate all the concepts that are presented in this section. the section is quite long and it will take another part of video so that I can cover the upcoming sections. So I should pause here and I will make next part of the video, and I will also try to make these videos in Hindi. So my suggestion with this while reading this book is that we should concentrate on each and every word of this book, and every word, every sentence, every conjunction has a meaning, and it is written with extreme care, as if some mathematics equations are written, and we cannot miss a single identity. We cannot miss a single plus minus sign. Similarly, while reading this book, we need to take acute care. Only then we can understand it. So this is just an introduction, and however, the first chapter is very basic chapter, and it is to be read a number of times to understand the dialectical methodology and to understand the concept of the value, use value, exchange value, and other upcoming concepts. So now I stop here. I hope I have tried to enumerate maximum concepts. So I will come later with another video of the next part. So till then, please, I should say bye. All right.